Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geary, Stein, and Steven Show, an amazing video podcast with sports stars, entertainment celebrities, and other great guests, combining one host who has no legs, one host who lives in Duluth, Minnesota, and another host who seems to never be on the show. But now, on to the show with Troy, Dave, and maybe even Will.
That's right. Hello, everybody. I am back in the home offices here in Bristol, Connecticut for another exciting episode of the Stein and Steven Show. And of course, we've got to talk a little bit of football, and I'm not going to be able to talk football unless, of course, I bring in my co-host. So let me bring in my buddy Troy Geary, who will talk about football a little bit. Well, we're going to talk about football a lot in this show, but baseball going on. How the Twins doing? How are we doing?
Twins, a couple games behind those Cleveland Guardians. Royals creeped above ahead of them, so it's going to be interesting baseball season. But NFL season just a short kickoff away here, so I'm excited for that as well.
Yeah, and we got the college game coming up too, so it's going to be really cool. And our guest tonight can kind of cover both of those aspects because he is a legendary person that played in college, led his team to a national championship in 1983, the Miami Hurricanes, and of course played in the NFL. And in fact, I was able to pull up an old song that can describe who our guest is tonight.
The dogs are barking, we're all having fun. Bernie will lead us to that place in the sun. He's got style and class, and he's 23. The MVP of the AFC. Bernie, oh yeah, how you can throw. Yeah. Bernie, oh baby. Super Bowl.
That's right. The guy in our box here right below, that is the legendary Berni Kosar, and we're watching some of your highlights, and man, I can't get that horrible song out of my mind. Berni, do you remember that thing?
Well, Dave and Troy, it's awesome to be with you. Thank you for showing me that amazing song and highlights to start. But I must not have scrolled too deep on the email invitation. I missed the dress code to put on my Cleveland Guardians hat. Okay, so I did not know that I'd be sitting here in hostile territory as a big baseball fan and our Guardians, who we want to be winning the division. And fortunately, we did salvage one victory, Troy, against your Royals there. And Dave, the Minnesota Twins, I hope you guys stay in third place behind us.
Well, we're going to talk more football than baseball, but yeah, it's been a great summer, and we're watching some of your highlights, some magical throws and plays from when you were with Cleveland, and it blows my mind when I go back to think how long. Like we're talking, I was in high school when you were in University of Miami. I was a senior, when you guys won the national championship, and now we have flashed forward some 40 years. I mean, does it feel like it was just yesterday, Bernie?
I don't feel like it feels like it was just yesterday, but before I went on the air today, they were showing some of the highlights of the University of Miami Florida Gators rivalry that happens to be resurrected this upcoming Saturday. And they were showing Jimmy Johnson's first W back in 1984 against the Gators and with myself quarterbacking. And again, it doesn't seem like 40 years ago because it's still fresh in my mind.
Yeah, and it's fresh. Thinking all the minds of the sports fans that were a part of that in that era. And so we're just going to talk some football today and just talk about your career and the amazing things and things you've overcome, the health things and everything like that. But it's going to be a great show, and we're really excited for you to join us. And Troy, what are your thoughts about our guest tonight?
Yeah, well, Bernie, thanks first of all for joining us. Our good friend Mike Dempsey kind of connected us, so appreciate it. You coming on. I want to ask you about that 1983 Orange Bowl championship over in Nebraska. I mean, Tom Osborne, Howard Schlettenberger. I mean, man, what a game! What do you most remember about that game? Nebraska was known for their defense at that time, and you pretty much made them look silly, 31-20. You guys won your first national championship for University of Miami.
Thanks. Thanks for starting on a fun game and a fun outcome like that, winning a national championship. Howard Schnellenberger, God bless him, was really my football father. And as our head coach back then, he was also the offensive coordinator for the 1972 Miami Dolphins with Don Shula, the only team to go undefeated still to this day in the NFL with a Super Bowl victory. And Coach Schnellenberger, like he learned from Don Shula, who was a disciple of the great Paul Brown here in Cleveland, and Howard Schnellenberger was recruited and a disciple of the great Bear Bryant from Kentucky and Alabama, and he recruited Joe Namath. So the convergence of those two old school offenses really laid an amazing foundation for me, for my knowledge of the game and stuff. And that kind of old school mentality, that type of toughness that the coaches taught you back then. And I'm so blessed to have tough guy, old school coaches like that really ingrained the spirit of me into never quitting, never giving up. And that's very true in football, but it was also kind of a life lesson that I didn't know at the time that's really proved invaluable as now I get into the late third quarter, early fourth quarter of my life. And actually, when you get some of the diagnoses that I've had, actually probably fourth quarter to overtime of my life. So a lot of the things that the coaches taught me, Coach Schnellenberger, and going into that Nebraska game as an 17-point underdog, I don't think we really even knew that or thought about it from that perspective, because the coach and that system and that kind of mindset that they taught us back then really made us believe we were the favorite. We were the best team. We weren't underdogs. And that kind of, I do the you matter a lot. And not just because of the University of Miami and 41 years ago winning the national championship, but it taught me about so much of you matter and self-confidence and self-esteem. And Coach Schnellenberger used to say, to believe is to be strong. And when you believe in something, you can almost visualize it happening. And that type of mindset, he instilled in us, in me in particular. It really manifested itself on that New Year's night game against Nebraska, be able to come in what people thought was a miraculous victory, but to us, we were expected to win. And that kind of coaching points from him still reside within me today.
I was going to ask you about that too. A usual number, 20. Tell us how you decided on that for your college number.
Well, I was as a sophomore in high school, I was probably fifth or sixth string and got number 20 in high school. And when I got to college, I thought I was going to be the only quarterback recruited then. And I get there, and Jim Kelly is a senior. Mark Richt was his backup, who went on to be an amazing coach at the U and University of Georgia. And then another freshman was there named Vinny Testaverde. Okay, debatably one of the most greatest athletic throwing quarterbacks, and with speed and strength. Truthfully, a lot of the stuff I'm not. And so to get to the University of Miami and see that level of competition was at first intimidating, but then actually it is foundationally for some of the things that taught me in terms of competition, not quitting, not running from a challenge. And when you realize that maybe you're outgunned and you may not be able to start, it really is almost like a come to Jesus moment where it really, you decide, are you going to go for it? Or as Coach Schnellenberger said, are you going to run home to mommy and complain and say how hard it was and how you got taken advantage of and you didn't get a chance? He goes, I'm going to give you a chance. Because I was thinking I was going to have to transfer. He goes, no, I'm going to give you a chance. He goes, it doesn't look good for you, but he goes, I will let you play. And he goes, you're the one position where athleticism is important, but it's not the number one thing. And you need to minimize your things that you're not good at and maximize the things that you're strong at. So as somebody who ran a 5.5, 5.40 and barely got up a $1.85, knew that strength and speed wasn't my strong point, but I was blessed mentally to be able to piece things together. And before the days today, now with analytics and math and stuff to kind of decipher stuff, I was really doing that kind of stuff back then. And that was giving me a chance to mentally use the chess match that they taught me to execute offense.
And Bernie, I don't have any legs, and I think I might have been able to outrun you back in the day. So that would have been a fun race. No. And that's the one thing I want to talk about. You were a 19-year-old kid that was handed over a team to go for a national championship. And it was so funny to see the critics and the scouts say, we don't like the way he comes out under center. We don't like his footwork. We don't like the way he throws. Yet, you were very intelligent. You've got a high IQ, and you're an offensive quarterback. And
Well,
so how did that work for you being 19 and everybody telling you you're not doing it the right way?
Well, I was blessed that we didn't have social media and we didn't have the internet. So it was only just a few kind of the papers and TVs and stuff. And coaches back then really did a good job of kind of keeping you away from that type of stuff. So you didn't see it as much. And the coaches, they never let you believe that in yourself. So they kind of gave you the kind of funneled information to kind of keep you focused in that. And I still remember to this day, Coach Snellenberger saying that you're almost like the quarterback for his team is almost like an eraser. I go, what do you mean by that? He goes, you need to erase all the mistakes that us coaches make before it gets to the field. And you need to be able to change that. And mentally, I'm 19 years old and he's believing in me to have the confidence to actually make those changes. And that kind of element of trust made me believe that, hey, if my coach, my football father, my teammates believed in me and had that trust in me, then I was able to show that. It was easier for me to pull the trigger. And that was a good life lesson. So when you know somebody you trust and respect has your back, it's easier to pull the trigger. And for quarterbacks, and it's not as clear as it seems with the rush coming at you and the people, and especially in the old days where they're able to hit you from about any angle in a couple of steps, be able to keep that calmness and be able to squeeze it into tight holes or throw receivers open. When you know your coach and your players have your back like that and believe in you, then it's easier to do that. And just like the antithesis, when you feel like you're being second guessed and stuff, and you really are cognizant of your surroundings and the pressure and the stress of it, it's somewhat more challenging to actually make those plays.
Bernie, being from Minnesota, I got to ask you. I told everybody that you were going to be on the show, they said, "Oh man, we got to ask. We want to know about the story about the supplemental draft, 1985. The Vikings traded up number 2. They were looking to pick you, and you went the other route for the supplemental draft. Can you tell us the story from your point of view? And was it mostly that you wanted to play for Cleveland, being from Ohio?"
Well, at first too, as I was coming out, and a little bit to what David too was just asking, I also, besides Howard Snellenberger, had Earl Morrall. And Earl Morrall was the quarterback during that, and Bob Greasy, that 72 Dolphins team that went undefeated. And they fortunately didn't change my throwing motion. They said to me that no matter, even though it isn't aesthetically perfect, and it doesn't look like most other quarterbacks, he goes, your velocity on the ball is unbelievable, and your accuracy and timing is all that matters. And as long as you're accurate, and more importantly, accurately on time with good timing, they didn't care how I threw. I took that for granted because my high school coach was like that. And then the great Earl Morrill and Howard Schnellenberger also didn't try to change me and said it was about timing. So I'm blessed to have been able to have not been changed because I had really good timing and being able to throw. And when that happened in '85, I'm only 20 years old. Now, I'm proud of where I'm at in Northeastern Ohio. I'm still here. I grew up here about an hour away from Cleveland and the stadium. And it's a beautiful area. But Northeastern Ohio and the manufacturing jobs are struggling here again in 2024. Well, they were really struggling in the 1970s when I grew up. And I like to sit here today as a high society, affluent, wealthy, generational person. But the truth is, the Kosar family, we are lower demographic steel workers that came over from the old country. My grandfather did, and went right into the steel mills, and basically everybody before me and my family. As the dogs are barking,
The dog's gone. There they are.
Dog pound season. But as the jobs were dissipating, all of our Kosars really were hourly steel workers. So in the 70s, the mills closed, and we went from having utopia in the 50s and 60s with everybody having jobs and stuff to basically the late 70s and early 80s of no jobs and really serious issues. And that was the era I grew up in. So again, I am as a 60-year-old man. I shouldn't have to have complete truth serum, but really the truth is, still to this day, I'm trying to pretend to be extroverted and cool, but I've always really been introverted and shy. And bluntly, still today at 60, I'm a mommy's boy, and love that my mom's here in Youngstown, Ohio. Even more so, the inability at 19 and 20 years old to, again, I know we're pros. I get a chance to go to the pros and be a professional, but I was still a little boy, and mom took care of me. I still can't cook and clean. So that's partly why I'm a major juicer right now in my Vitamix, because that's kind of idiot proof for that. So to kind of have my family around was one thing, but bluntly, there's three men here on this podcast. As men back in the older days, this was somewhat of a chauvinistic area where I grew up too. So men had their pride, and my dad, I love him. He's still alive. He's an amazing man. I mean, to be able to weather that storm and get me through high school in Boardman when there were no jobs there, and get a scholarship to college at the University of Miami when we wouldn't have been able to afford college. I can't thank him enough for what he did, but it kind of is a sexist, chauvinistic area and the way that we grew up. And bluntly, to say, hey, I came back because I wanted to support my family financially and have them feel good about working, and people say, well, why don't you just hand them money? You don't hand people money who want to have their own pride and respect and want to feel like they're earning it. So it was partly that, and being around my family, because the economy and the jobs for not just my mom and dad was so dissipated. And I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to some Minnesota guys right now, okay? But Bud Grant was one of the guys that I looked up to as a little boy. And before I realized how painfully slow I was, Fran Tarkington is who I thought I was emulating in the backyard, scrambling around. Okay, so for that to have that honor to sit there with Bud Grant, and Mike Lynn was the general manager then. And I still remember we had some private meetings to discuss this, and Bud Grant, Mike Lynn came down, and Mr. Lynn kept saying, hey, I have a reputation for being cheap and frugal, but I'm going to sign you to a big contract. Don't worry about it. And I go, sir, trust me. And this is bad business of me. But even to this day, I'm still secondary to the money in the business, and more so to the primary thing of who I'm with and who I'm around. And I did say the story I just told you about the steel mills in my family to Bud Grant and Mike Lynn. I'm not sure. I know Bud Grant believed it. I'm not sure Mike really did. And he kept saying, you know, and I kept saying, I'm probably, and the University of Miami was loaded. So I'm like, please don't trade. Don't trade with Houston for this pick, because I don't even think I want to come out, because I want to stay at the University of Miami and keep playing in that. And Bud Grant gave me the greatest piece of advice. And it is kind of why I came out. He goes, you know, Bernie, I love how you throw. Same thing Earl Morrill said to me. I love how you throw. It's awkward. It's unorthodox. It's not mechanically sound. You're probably going to have issues when you're an old man like me. He goes, but it's right on time and it's really accurate. And I said I was so thankful of it. But he goes, you got to remember one thing. He goes, if you want to stay in college, he goes, your arm and physics and your physical body does not know whether you're in high school, college, or the pros. And you only have X amount of throws in you. Every day you throw, you have one less X. And the way you throw, once your elbow goes, once your shoulder goes, you're done. So you may as well use up your throws in the pros, because you aren't going to be able to throw forever. And I was like, wow, that was like groundbreakingly eye-opening to me. And now today, as a guy whose right arm is 6 inches shorter than his left arm from all the elbow and shoulder issues, Bud Grant was Nostradamus back then. Yeah.
Well, we would have liked you in purple, but you don't look too bad in the old.
Well, it worked out for the Vikings. You know, they got the late Hall of Fame Chris Dolman, so, and Cleveland got you, Bernie. So it worked out for both teams.
Yeah. You know, the Chris Dolman one, and that's even. So I played against Chris at the University of Pittsburgh and in college at the University of Miami, and then we played a stack against each other in the pros, and that's part of kind of my mission now as we get older. You know, back in the old days, I'm not just saying this for effect, but you guys know it really kind of was like war out there, and the mindset to go and play wasn't like it was today. And I almost wish we were a little more like today, where there was a little more fraternization, a little more understanding, a little more talking to each other. But one of the few guys I did spend a lot of time on was Chris Dolman. And whether it's, I wear this jersey and I have one with Chris Dolman on it. I have another one with Reggie White, one with Jerome Brown. Michael Kosar with the Detroit Lions was a superstar back then. And what Steve McMichael is going through right now. And other than Steve, all the other guys have passed. And Chris Dolman, and unfortunately, how he passed is, you know, we all want to remember him as the Chris Dolman at University of Pittsburgh. We want to remember the Chris Dolman of the 80s and early 90s. I want to remember the Chris Dolman who I love so much, who I could always get him on a hard three, hut, and get him to jump offside, you know, and we'd laugh and giggle about it. And that, as opposed to the last few times in the last few years, I saw him in the wheelchair and that. And some of that stuff really puts it in perspective of some of the gladiator guys that we idolize and look up to, and maybe some of the costs that it takes as we try to age out with somewhat grace and dignity, and somewhat trying to hang on to our cognitive abilities to be able to enjoy stuff like you, Troy, and again, and Dave. I was telling you yesterday, Dave Stevens speaks. I mean, I think I had some problems. I had some issues to overcome. I'm not trying to stroke you, but bro, I mean, look at how you are. Look at what you've overcome. I mean, playing defensive line, trying out for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, look at it. We
Hey, we
talked.
both got cut from Jerry Jones, so we can talk about that a little bit later as well. But thank
Yeah,
you.
well, Jerry was probably as nice a man to me. And in a moment of getting cut from the Browns and then not sure where your career is going to be going, and then to fall into heaven in Dallas with that team and that offensive line, and then be able to actually have, north of 100 quarterback rating. And all I really had to do was hand it off to Emmett and do a few check downs to Emmett and Moose and Jay Novacek and Michael Irvin and Alvin Harper. So it was actually really, really kind of fun to play. Us quarterbacks are victims, or like life, we're victims or beneficiaries of the people around us. Well, absolutely sure of that from the quarterback perspective. And when you had those 93 Cowboys around you, it was pretty reassuring.
Yes. Well, we're going to talk about that, the Cowboys, the Dolphins, everything else, especially your health and things that have been happening. And again, we are so excited to have you here. So don't go away. You're watching Geary, Stein, and Stevens right here on your.
Hi, this is Kathy Ireland. So excited to share with you today our incredible Kathy Ireland Nutrition Supplement Powders by Amoxi. We have a beautiful array of powders to help you live a happier, healthier lifestyle. Our focus is on bringing families a nutritious option to complement your daily routine. With Collagen Plus, you'll see improvements in your hair, nails, joints, and bones, as well as skin elasticity and hydration. Immunity Support uses our proprietary green blends, antioxidant powder, and digestive support fiber to give your immune system a powerful boost. Golden Oat Milk is dairy-free and uses a recipe of turmeric and ginger, coconut milk, and our mushroom blend to give you more of an energy boost without the crash of coffee. And with Super Greens, we have a probiotic and digestive enzyme blend, along with fruits, veggies, and 9 types of greens to help support healthy gut. Please experience the difference of Amoxi supplements. Let's get healthier together. Thank you.
One in 4 people have a disability. I'm one of them. I'm also a working actor, passionate about advancing disability inclusion. Employers, take note. People with disabilities are the largest minority group in the world. We've got a trusted ally by our side. Easter Seals is expanding meaningful employment opportunities for people with disabilities, seniors, and veterans through workforce programs that also provide employers and communities with support to truly make the workforce inclusive. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Welcome back to the Geary, Stein, and Stevens show, and we are excited to continue this amazing discussion with Berni Kosar. And Berni, we got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk some more football here, but like these little known facts that people don't realize, that you had the opportunity to play for Bill Belichick when he was starting out as a head coach, and things didn't exactly turn out the way you wanted them for in Cleveland. Could you talk about that experience with that young coach and kind of the feeling of where they left you on this last pass that you ever threw as a Cleveland Brown?
Well, it's funny we're showing where I actually drew that last one up in the dirt there, because it wasn't a play that was on the game plan and stuff. But, as I get reflective and I think back, and even our first segment, talking about Earl Moore was my coach, Howard Snellenberger, we mentioned Don Shula, Jimmy Johnson, Marty Schottenheimer, Bud Carson, then a young Bill Belichick and stuff, and to have the honor to call plays for Don Shula, the honor to call plays for Howard Snellenberger, the honor to call plays for Jimmy Johnson, proudly to be the only quarterback to played at the University of Miami, Dallas Cowboys, and finish my career with Coach Johnson with the Miami Dolphins. It's kind of special to have all those type coaches, and then to be Bill Belichick's quarterback at that won his first football game for him, ironically in Foxborough, against the New England Patriots. From that, and actually, me and Bill, as was almost with all my coaches, all the guys I just mentioned, and I forgot Jim Schaffner was an interim coach for a while too for us. Really loved him. Bill Belichick's obsessiveness, okay, is almost, again, I try to mask it in my personality, but my football personality is almost mirrors what Bill Belichick was. So I actually really loved that type of work ethic and that type of X's and O's and that type of intelligence in preparation. So it was incredibly harmonious at first. Some of the things he did say, like diminished skills and stuff, heck, year 10 in the league, year 9, when he was saying that, I vehemently denied it. But the truth is, our skills are diminishing. And for a quarterback who could barely lift a $185 and is running a 5.5, 5.40, and then had probably 25 broken bones by that point in my life and 20 concussions, he was probably more right than wrong in terms of having lots of years left. So actually, some of the stuff that happened, at the time I was bummed out, crushed, hurt about it. But in reality, when you look back at it, I love the time I had with my coaches. And then it actually probably saved me from, one, I got to go to Dallas and play great and have get a Super Bowl ring. Whereas if I probably stayed in Cleveland, we still haven't been to the Super Bowl. And the team, I did not have to make that decision 2 years later to leave and go to Baltimore when the team left. So in a way, it kind of left me out of some tough situations. And I feel so blessed as now an older man in my fourth quarter of my life with a national championship ring. And I wouldn't have had a Super Bowl ring if I didn't bluntly get released from Cleveland. So I actually look at it pretty reflectively.
And we're watching you contributed to this team. So, you walked off the street and won a game for him, and then you were there in the championship game. Not too bad.
Yeah, it was cool. I got to play in probably 7 or 8 games, a few of the playoff games, and then to play some meaningful moments in it, like in the NFC Championship game, Troy sustained a concussion, and to be able to come in and make a few plays and throw a touchdown pass, and to be able to that play you showed against the Browns against Denver and throwing that post as my last play in Denver to go as in Cleveland against Denver to go as a touchdown, and then 7 days later to be playing for the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys against that Arizona Cardinals hat you had on earlier, is special, especially now. I actually felt the specialness of that back then, but again, as time happens and as you get older, I don't want to sound like I'm living in the past or an egotist with a swelled cranium, but it's actually super cool to be reflective of those moments.
Yeah, speaking of your time in the league, with all the playoff anguish in Cleveland, how special was it to be on the field, Super Bowl against the Buffalo Bills in the closing seconds, taking a knee as the confetti's falling down, and you getting your first Super Bowl championship?
So if let me look behind me, the Super Bowl is somewhere from taking that knee. That ball's back here somewhere in my home office here. That was cool. The week before, truthfully, was probably cooler for me. And that was back when that was one of the few years that there wasn't a bye week in between the Super Bowl. So it was just 1 week. So 7 days before that knee and that victory against Buffalo in the Super Bowl, the NFC Championship game. And again, I don't like to see anybody get hurt, and especially now knowing this concussion thing and the ramifications, unfortunately, of TBI or CTE, whatever acronym you want to use for the issues that are going on up here for myself, ex-players, a lot of military guys, younger than us with the PTSD and that. So, but really the week before was with Troy getting hurt, to come in and play the whole second half, and bluntly to get the monkey off my back, after losing 3 AFC championship games to the great John Elway, to play against Steve Young and the great San Francisco 49ers. And Ronnie Lott always had my number. So Ronnie Lott is in the Hall of Fame, and I contributed to his plaque there with quite a few picks by him. So that wasn't one of the games, though he got one. So for me to get that monkey off my back, to actually play in a NFC AFC championship game where it ended up smiling at the end, was massive happiness.
And
I say happiness. I bet that's actually probably the wrong word. And I was talking to some of my old teammates before this. Craig Wolfley, who I competed against, Hall of Famer with the Steelers. Maybe not happiness, but almost relief. And when some of us you win, like you say you're happy in that, but it's almost you're happy because the consequence.
And we've talked about a lot of impressive names, and again, that tail end of your career, you also got to be with a heck of a good quarterback down in Miami. So tell us a little bit about as your NFL career ended and that experience of being around Marino.
Well, I really am. I'm talking about Dan Marino and the great Don Shula.
And this play, the play that you designed this play, by the way, the fake snap.
Yeah, so that was 94. That was the first year that we had microphones in our heads. I didn't do too well with that. We didn't like all the talking, us old school guys, especially the guys like me who called my own plays. So I needed some of that time to think in that. But I'm a pretty obsessive, and I do not like to waste plays. So I don't like to just throw plays away. And one of the plays that I ran in 1986, and that play was 1994, Jets and Pete Carroll and Boomer Esiason. And that cornerback was Aaron Glenn, who's now defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. But the spike play, the clock play, is usually run at the end of the half to kill the clock. But a lot of times everybody stands around. So if you at the end of the second quarter, the end of the first quarter, you want to get maybe a shorter field if everybody's off. Well, there's a quick out component to it, and they just run a quick out, and I could throw that in 2.5 seconds, and maybe you get 7, 8, 9 yards to shorten that 50-yard field goal and maybe make it a 42-yard field goal with that. And if you're pressed, it turns into a fade. So I'd run that against the Jets in 1986 in the double overtime game with the Browns and the Jets. And that situation came up once or twice in the second quarter to help us get a field goal. But then it happened at the end of the game. But I didn't throw the pass like Dan Marino. I underthrew it, so people didn't really.
Oh no.
38-50.
Gonna get him back?
He'll probably have to log out and get back in.
Get released, we go to Dallas, and we'd practice that with Norv Turner and Jimmy Johnson, but the situation never came up. Now it's 1994, and the Dolphins were playing the Jets, and Dan Marino. I pride myself on how accurate and good I throw. Dan Marino throws at another elite level of awesomeness. So his arm talent is next level. And he's leading us on a masterful comeback. I'm on the microphone with the play calling, but in his ear and stuff. But Danny's so gifted under the Shula system that he's basically calling his own his own plays. But we had this clock play in there, and it just timed up perfect to be able to catch them off guard and catch them napping like that, and really sneak out a W. And it looked like you were going to end up getting lost. And that was if one of the things I'm probably proudest of is now today, you go to any pro team, offense or defensive playbook, any college team, offense or defensive playbook, and any high school team, offense or defensive playbook, and they all have the clock, the spike play in it, and how to defend against it. So there's a lot of variations off it now, which I kind of take a lot of pride in.
Well, you should. And we've got a great segment coming up next. We're going to get a little down and dirty and get a little vulnerable and talk about the not so good things that have kind of happened. But the good news is you're on the road to recovery. So we are going to talk about that coming up in the next segment. You're watching Geary, Stein, and Stevens. Stay with us.
Serendipity Yacht Cruises and Events wants you to come party with us. We're bringing the fun to the Houston Bay Area. Stay tuned for all of our incredible events throughout the year, featuring amazing food and drinks, live entertainment, special guests, and so much more. Fun, new, different. Serendipity Yacht Cruises and Events is where you want to be. So come party with us. It's more than a yacht. It's serendipity.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Melissa, and together we started Fresh Clean Threads.
For most of my life, I've worn a black t-shirt, and most were either too short, too baggy, or weren't consistent. Like most guys with a problem, I turned to my wife for help.
From our San Diego condo, using my years of apparel experience, we set out to make the world's best fitting t-shirt.
Since day one, our Fresh Clean tees were made to offer a flattering fit for all body types, be ridiculously soft and comfortable, and not break the bank.
And more than 1 million customers later, we still make every t-shirt with the same attention to detail as when we first started.
And what we've learned from selling so many t-shirts to people around the world is that while the perfect fit and feel are the starting point,
it all comes down to feeling confident and empowered to live each day fearlessly fresh.
Unleash your confidence at freshcleanthreads.com.
All right. I think we've lost our guest. So I'm going to have to do a fix right there. Bernie, are you there?
There he is.
There he is. Okay. So
Lost you guys.
That's all right. We're coming out of the break, so let's just stay right here, and I'll fix that out of the break. And let's just pretend we're coming out of the break. And welcome back to the Geary, Stein, and Stevens show. And look at that young kid in the Oval Office there with President Reagan. Bernie, holy cow!
How about that? Having the nerve to coach up President Reagan on his arm talent. He has better form than me.
Well, that was a special moment.
There you are, Dave.
Oh man!
Right. Just redo that.
All right, let's. I don't know what just happened there. We got all kinds of ghosts and globins. All right, let me pick that up from that spot on the break. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you, Fresh Clean Threads, and look at the fresh, clean look on that young guy in the Oval Office with former President Ronald Reagan, the national champion, the University of Miami team visiting the Oval Office. Bernie, what are your memories? Look at that young kid. You look pretty good there.
Well, thank you very much. That was President Reagan. I was calling him the Gipper from some of his old movies and stuff. And I actually wasn't saying this to suck up to our president, but his mechanics is way better than mine. He's more overhand than me.
Wow. Well, that was such a special moment. I was glad I was able to find that. And so many special moments of your career that were positive, but, there are things that take the toll on the professional football players, especially back in the day when you didn't have the gear, you didn't have the protection, you didn't have the plays or the referees protecting a lot of the quarterbacks and players. So it took its toll on you, and it's taken its toll over the years. So tell us a little bit about what you've been going through and where you are now.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I prefer to think about the positive, the fun side of the career and what happened. But for the people out there listening, the younger parents, the younger kids, there's absolutely a cost of that comes along with this, from a physical, cognitive, and then sometimes from a mental state. As us men, a lot of us don't like to admit to having insecurities and issues that are ramifications of things that happen to you, one, physically, but then also happen to you from a mental side of it. So as a guy who, I said this 18 months ago, I was saying, I've had 40 surgeries, 80 broken bones, probably 100 concussions. I've had 14-ish seizures. The last one in particular, I was in a coma for 96 hours in 2017. When I came out of that coma, the doctor said, "Hey, you're a tough guy. You made it. Keep up with your prescriptions and protocols." And of those 14 or 15 seizures, Troy and Dave, probably about 10 of them were on airplanes. And there was something probably with altitude. So I was flopping, bluntly, on airplanes on probably 10 of them. And I had a propensity to do it more in the O'Hare airport because most flights don't connect directly to Cleveland. So I have a personal relationship with the Catholic Hospital in Chicago, who's done great care of me in some of my issues in that. And this one time coming on a flight, the last one in 2007, hopefully the last one in 2017, I ended up in a coma for 96 hours after that. And like I was saying, the doc came up and said, "Keep up with your prescriptions and protocols." Well, I retired in 97. I started having excessive surgeries in like 99, 2000. And I'm not saying this to blame anybody in the league. I appreciate how you prefaced that, Dave, but no need to. I'm not looking to blame, and I know what I signed up to play for, and play with and that. But the scripting started with the surgeries of back with the pain medications, the Vicodin, the Percocet, the Oxycontins. When I was playing, I didn't really use that much of it, but afterwards, that became some of the scripts of choice in the pain management side of it. But then also, that was a time when they also were trying to increase oxygen, blood flow, and energy in the brain, and with focus and attention issues. And that's when also they started scripting people for a lot of Adderall and Vyvanse and that, and those depression type medications. So that combination of, literally, I spent most of this century, the last 3 decades, on north of probably 70 pills a day. And I was 37 years old in the year 2000. And I was a Mr. Mom with 4 kids, and my oldest daughter, 10 years old. And I'm at my playing weight when Bud Grant and Mike Lynn and Marty Schottenheimer and we were going through that whole thing in 1984 and 1985. I ended up becoming a pro quarterback. I weighed 210 pounds. So by 1999, 2000, I was quite a few ho-hos north of 320. And I'm not proud to say that. And I'm a Mr. Mom with 4 kids at that point. And my 10-year-old daughter, 90 pounds, gets scripted for the same amount of Adderall that her father did, over 100 milligrams. So and I'm not saying in society everybody doesn't need that medicine, okay? Sometimes I think we're over-scripted. So me and my daughter now have this decade-long drought, these type issues. And till 2017, when I'm laying in that hospital bed in a coma, coming out of it, I had been taking those scripts for parts of 3 decades. So to have had that issue, and even though the doctor said staying on that, I developed this whole holistic lifestyle and was able to figure out how to bluntly detox myself and slow down the deterioration of my brain. So I was told in 2017, 2000, beginning of 2018, that I have 5 years left of cognitive brain function. I couldn't say cognitive. I couldn't enunciate, articulate, communicate any multiples. By this point in the day, it would have been this type of interview to be trying to answer. Had that to yourself, and then to figure out a way to flush yourself and naturally heal yourself. I haven't done a pill or really drank in 7.5 years, and the cognitive decline has absolutely slowed down to the point where it was surprising 18 months ago to find out after not doing anything for 7 years, other than healing yourself, why all of a sudden I'm diagnosed with Parkinson's and put on 5 months, 4.5 months ago, put on the liver transplant list. So
Hey, Bernie,
to
I got to
have
interrupt you
been
for a second.
having issues of bleeding out and Parkinson's and being on a transplant list 5 months ago, and to have been told you're going to have your liver, your spleen, and your gallbladder taken out, I was pretty discouraged and disappointed. And to have figured out some ways now to have flushed and detoxed and to have reversed some of the, or at least slowed down the Parkinson's, and to where you go from shaking now to not shaking, from having melt scores of 28 and 30, where I was supposed to be last month and this month doing the transplant, yet to be able to flush and detox myself naturally now, and to uh, lowered my melt scores down to 6 or 8, where they don't have to really do the transplant immediately, and where my type 2 diabetes and A1C levels have now dropped so much to be able to sit here today in front of you, not just saying I feel good to look good and say the right thing on camera and stuff, but to genuinely mean it and not have my Pinocchio nose grow anymore is awesomely refreshing.
Hey, I've got really bad news, Bernie. Right when we started talking about all that good stuff, your picture has gone. I don't see you anymore. I heard you, but we don't see you. So I'm gonna have to do a fix. But I want to get you back so we can just kind of hear all of that again. I hate to make you say it again because it was tremendous. You
I
want
didn't
to
touch anything.
get out and come back in and see if that fixes it? Yeah, I don't know if it's because you're
I
on your.
mean, so I'll leave. Let me come right back.
Yeah,
Darn it.
yeah. I got some fixing to do. Yeah, the picture's not there. His camera's not there. His video is there. The audio is there, but there's no picture. I don't know why. Bernie, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I hear you good.
Yeah, I don't see you anymore. Dang it, we got to fix this. That's the most important part of the show. What would it have done? Probably because he's on a cell. He went on his cell rather than the laptop.
Oh, he did. He didn't do the laptop.
There we go. All right, here we go.
There we go.
Okay,
There we go.
so I'm going to edit this, but if we could kind of go back and just, I don't even know where we can pick it up.
Just go for it, bro. I don't mind.
Okay, so we'll do the fix here, and so I'm going to say this. Let me see if I'll put me on camera. I'll put me on camera, and then I'll fix it that way. So, Bernie, as you talk about all the things that they had you on, I mean, did this contribute to your issues with your liver? And I mean, How have you overcome all of this, and where do you stand? I know we've talked about the onset of Parkinson's, how you battle that, so all these things that are so compounded. Is this all part of it? Is it part of playing, or is it part of the drugs they had you on, or is it just a part of everything?
So I'm not saying this to blame anybody or to make an excuse, but it's probably a combination of the playing, the scripting, some of the stuff that players are supposed to do that I did off the field that I can only blame myself for. So from that perspective, um, but one of the things I've been focused on, I'm not sure how many people in the sports world overly, would care about this level of detail. So I won't take up too much time with it. But um, the environmental toxins and the poisonings that sometimes are happening in society, in the water supply. And here I'm talking to you here at the northern end of Appalachia, here in the south part of like Portage County. And there is a lot of oil and fracking. And I have on my farm a oil well, bluntly, that leaked into my water table, and I have tilt levels of petrol poisoning inside of me, on top of high levels of a fracking agent that actually Dr. Roizen from the Cleveland Clinic, who was Dr. Oz's partner, and is the head of functional medicine, and have been on Oprah Winfrey show 53 times. Great guy, says he's never seen a tilt level of this fracking agent and petrol poisoning inside of a person before. And if you look outside, I'm technically challenged, so I don't want to mess with our camera here. But if I showed you outside, I have dumbly, I have a oil well and fracking well literally 50 yards from the farm here that leaked into my water table. On top of I think I am the second coming, I'm going to show my age here, guys, of Eddie Albert and Green Acres. So I have nice equipment, don't know how to use it. And the real farmers, they spray the heck out of the pesticides to get clean food today. And I'm living right in the epicenter of toxic poisoning from petro and the oil wells, on top of the environmental spraying. So I also have a high level of the Roundup in me, and that ends up really, Dr. Roizen says, frying your liver 1,000% more than alcohol and the pills did. So both of those aren't helping my issue, but that's actually what turned me on to massively trying to figure out how to flush and detox myself. Because yeah, it's just not me here at this farm over the last few decades. I've raised my children here, and I talked earlier in the show about me and my oldest daughter both getting scripted for Adderall 25 years ago, and she was on the same dosages of me. Well, living out here too, she also has the oil petro poisoning kind of within her, and this pesticide stuff. So as a dad, that in itself makes me nauseous and incredibly embarrassed and obsessed. Yeah, I want to obsess and help myself, but more so, I experimented a ton on myself. It was an obsession of mine, not to get myself better, to look good to you guys and, to do this, but to really flush and detox my children and my daughter in particular. So I'm really proud of kind of figure out some holistic flushing and detoxing ways to do this. And actually, I was paying attention to a couple of your commercials during our segment here. So you guys should be doing some of your fermented super greens, that I saw as one of your sponsors out there. That's
the Ireland wants us to be healthy.
Fumble.
There we go.
Yeah.
Bernie, you got hit with that double whammy though of having now. I mean, where do we stand with the need of a liver transplant? And again, being told you have the onset of Parkinson's.
So there's probably a correlation to the accelerated quickness that the Parkinson's and the liver materialized when you kind of factor in and you lock in on the petro poisoning, the Roundup poisoning, and that. And then for people out here listening, I'm not trying to overly get on a soapbox, and I know it's challenging with economics and time these days, but it is so hard to eat good. And ultra processed, packaged, fast food is super challenging. That actually amplifies some of the issues. So it's one of the things that I really kind of focus on and love to suggest to people as some of the healthier ways to try to ward off some of these issues and try to ward off being so heavily medicated, to give your own body a chance to heal itself.
Yeah, Bernie, talk about the website and the product Addy that you're near and dear to your heart here.
Well, you know what? Check out the Kosar19.com. It has a little bit of my story, some of the things we're doing. As soon as you guys hit me with the link, I'll be excited to put our podcast up there. But it's some, and again, it has the shop things on there, but I really have it up there because it is a way for me to kind of show people who aren't maybe wanting to talk as much about some of their own personal issues and maybe some of their needs with stuff that I've been able to come up with, because with Dr. Tony Post at University Hospital and Dr. Roizen at the Cleveland Clinic, they love protein and the raw coffee powder. And what I've, as a trustee at the University of Miami, and I love our sports program, but we have an amazing medical school. So I do a lot of testing and research with some amazing organizations like at University of Miami, the clinic, University Hospital, Primetime Health up here. And the ability to, that's why I picked up on your super greens that you guys are sponsoring, which we don't get enough fresh vegetables. So being able to eat with food as your medicine, but then smart supplementation. So this raw coffee powder that we've been able to put in for energy and focus in the protein powder is one thing. And then for people, this is something that's really important to me. We have an awesome Labor Day weekend coming up this week. We have great football games coming on August 31st, this Saturday. And it's the end of the month. And I'm sitting here in Cleveland, Ohio. I love my number 19, but I said earlier, we'll have 19 people commit suicide today in the state of Ohio. Okay, we've had 100 people in the last 6 days overdose death here in the state of Ohio from the fentanyl issue and stuff. Right now, like OxyContin was 6 and 7 years ago, there had people addicted, and we're running out of scripts and saying that there's a shortage of it. The same thing is happening today in the Adderall worlds. There's 60 to 80 million Americans on prescription Adderall that has meth basically in it. And now it started giving a 37-year-old ex-quarterback did in 2000, and a 10-year-old girl in the year 2000. Now my middle daughter is a child psychologist doing special needs kids. And they're putting 5-year-olds on Adderall, Ritalin, and Vyvanse and that. And here is me as a guy who's quasi on the spectrum. Troy, I'm sure you can relate to this with some of the issues that happens within your family. Autism runs in our family. I have some nephews that are special needs that are able to talk in that, but need help in their late 20s and early 30s. So it's special to me to figure out natural ways to find replacements, because this is the time of the month where I've lost, bluntly, some of my teammates because when you hear these scripts and some of the ramifications of these scripts, like abuse, depression, suicide, unfortunately, these are happening. And I just lost them here in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. And one of my ex-teammates is a Chagrin Falls high school graduate. Played in Notre Dame, won a national championship at Notre Dame. He was in the fight in the tunnel, in the '88 fight in the tunnel with the Notre Dame and the Hurricanes. Bob Dahl, he blocks for me in the early '90s with Bill Belichick. And why does he commit suicide on September 25th at the end of the month? I spent a lot of time with Junior Seau and Dave Durrison back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when people didn't understand the concussion issues and the ramifications of it. And they thought we were bluffing or embellishing, or we just didn't grow up because we wanted to play football. And that demon in our head was so powerful, and we didn't know what to do with it. And as men, we were afraid to articulate it because men don't cry and men don't have emotions and men are tough. Well, I'd like to think I'm as tough as anybody, getting run over from all those guys, and it beat me down. And I wanted to be able to tell older men it's okay to admit we don't have all the answers. And I'm more fixated now on talking to that 37-year-old dad that was me, who didn't know what to do for himself and didn't know what to do for his kids. So I just trusted people and didn't know that some of these natural options are out there. Instead of running to the street now, where 7 out of 10 pills here in the state of Ohio are laced with fentanyl, and you're playing Russian roulette with one pill could kill you. I want to be able to show and tell people, again, not just from and not at all from a sales perspective, but just as a ray of hope, to know there is an option out there that you can get stuff that you don't have to go to the street for. And the beautiful thing about it too is it's naturally detoxifying your blood. I did not take it as a replacement for any other drug. I took it because I'm doing a study on glucose control, and I needed to fix my blood with liver issues. So I needed to really experiment on a flushing and detoxing of my liver and type 2 diabetes to an attempt to get that to dissipate, to even give me a chance to not have to do this liver transplant. And bluntly, I didn't think it would work as great as it did. Matter of fact, the docs called me about 2 months ago, and I did besides me telling you I feel good, they hadn't seen me, and they had me do blood work, and they just read my blood report, and they go, wait a minute, I saw you almost dying 2 months ago, and you had these horrible numbers and blood panels. Now I'm looking at your blood panels, and you look like a healthy person. Like, Bernie, come on, you're going to get me in trouble. You can't have somebody fake a urinalysis and fake a blood test for you. And I go, wait, in the old days, I didn't know how to do that. But that actually is my blood and urine in there. And to see it, me just not telling you and trying to suck it up here for a TV or a podcast, but to have it confirmed with blood work and seeing my A1C levels dissipate and seeing my ability to be here, cognitively present, hopefully articulate, on something like this. This wasn't the case a couple of years ago. I'd be chewing off my tongue at this point. And, Dave, you kind of nicely said earlier, in my past, if you did some studies on me from some interviews 10 years ago, I mean, they were bad. So most of us players, I don't say it to gloat. I don't say it to sit here and say, look at me. I say it for people, if you're struggling out there, follow my journey at Kosar19.com. And I have some really, really simple, healthy things that I focus on detoxifying the body and the blood while increasing oxygen and blood flow to our peripheral.
I've got one more follow-up before we get back to football. I've seen that you talked about when the Cleveland situation happened, that was the lowest point in your life. But let's flash forward to where now your life is on the line for your liver and the onset of Parkinson's. I mean, how is your positivity? I mean, is this the lowest point of your life, or are you excited about what the future is and trying to fix some of these things and set the clock back a little bit?
Yeah, great question, Dave. It's for sure the latter. And I actually am really excited. And people go like, hey, you're going through all this stuff. Do you regret getting run over like a train as a quarterback? Do you regret, sucking it up, playing through those injuries, taking the pills, taking the medications? Do you even regret living on this farm, having petro poisoning and Roundup